Hey guys, tonight we're going to drift somewhere ancient, somewhere where sunlight wasn't a constant. Because once upon a time, even the sun called in sick. Yeah, that's right. The god of light, beauty, poetry, and occasionally ego, Apollo, decided one fine morning that he was just too tired to show up. You might think being a literal god of the sun means you can't take a day off, but apparently Olympus doesn't have HR. You're going to like this one. Or, well, you'll be too sleepy to decide. You'll walk with me through temples gone quiet, through dusty Greek valleys still waiting for dawn that never came. The birds are confused, the farmers are furious, and you're just here trying to stay awake long enough to hear what happened next. You sure you can handle a world without sunlight? Because honestly, you'd last maybe 10 minutes before checking your phone flashlight. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from, and what time is it there right now? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing at the edge of dawn, or what should have been dawn. The horizon is stuck in an awkward purplish half-light, as if the world has hit the pause button. Somewhere above the clouds, Apollo yawns, rolls over in his chariot, and decides, nope, not today. Maybe it's burnout. Maybe he's just over humanity's noise. The point is, the sun god has snoozed the universe. Down below, roosters crow into nothing. Farmers blink at the dim fields, muttering curses that sound suspiciously like prayer. One old man lights 3 torches and ties them together, swearing this super torch will coax the light back. It doesn't. Meanwhile, you wander through the quiet, the air cool and damp, the olive trees coated with dew like silver dust. Somewhere far away, temples open their doors early. Priests climb stairs to altars, expecting the first rays to touch their faces. Instead, darkness lingers. The marble is cold. You can almost feel Apollo's absence, like a missing heartbeat in the rhythm of the world. In Olympus, chaos brews. Helios, technically the original sun driver, is shouting about job descriptions. Zeus wants an emergency meeting, but no one can find Hera. Apparently she's napping too. The fates have gone silent, their threads tangled in the dark. And in this suspended moment, the earth holds its breath. You stroll past a small village where fires flicker nervously. Someone mutters that Apollo must be angry. Another says maybe he's fallen in love and forgotten his duty. The gossip spreads faster than wildfire, which, ironically, would be nice right now, given the temperature drop. It's strange how quiet beauty can be terrifying. No warmth, no glare, just endless twilight. The sea lies still like molten glass. Fishermen refuse to sail. They say the waves look untrustworthy, as if hiding secrets. Somewhere, a poet dips his pen in ink, deciding to write about this day the sun slept. He doesn't realize he's the first historian of this absurd event. Meanwhile, up there, Apollo lies sprawled across a cushion of lightless clouds. His golden hair's a mess, his lyre tangled in ribbons of dawn. He mutters something about work-life balance and stretches. You can almost hear him say, let them figure it out for once. Even gods, it seems, have bad Mondays. As the hours crawl by, humans start to adapt. Candles bloom across the cities like constellations turned upside down. Lovers whisper under the eternal dusk, finding it oddly romantic. Children stop asking when morning will come. They start calling it the long night. You find yourself adjusting too. The air smells faintly of honeyed smoke and wet stone. The stars, strangely visible, feel closer, as if peeking in to check how Earth is coping. And in that half-darkness, something inside you slows. The world isn't dead, just paused. You realize how frantic daylight usually is, how much noise sunlight brings. Maybe Apollo knew that. Maybe this is his way of forcing everyone to rest, even if it feels wrong. Still, somewhere deep inside Olympus, a single clock is ticking, counting the moments until someone gets fed up and drags the lazy god out of bed. But for now, the sky remains soft, half awake, and you, walking beneath it, Begin to wonder what kind of dream a god must be having when the whole world dreams with him. The air tastes strange now, like twilight stretched too thin. Villages wake into confusion, but there's no sunrise waiting to greet them. The goats bleat early, the roosters scream at shadows, and somewhere a baker stands before his cold oven, wondering if it's even legal to start kneading dough without sunlight. You walk through the square, where a handful of citizens have gathered, eyes squinting at the motionless horizon. Someone's already blaming Helios, someone else blames Zeus, and one bold man declares this is the work of those philosophers again. The crowd hums with fear disguised as curiosity. People always look for someone to blame when the world forgets how to work. In Athens, philosophers are having a meltdown of their own. One insists the earth must have stopped spinning. Another argues that perhaps Apollo's simply running a bit late due to divine traffic. There's even a small group of students selling sunrise prediction tickets, each with different times scribbled in charcoal. You can almost hear the marketing pitch. Buy one, guarantee your dawn. Meanwhile, temples are burning through their candle supply like TikTok trends. Priests chant longer than usual, their voices rising against the sky, calling Apollo's name in 50 different dialects, because who knows which one he prefers today. The sound drifts upward, but Apollo, blissfully unaware, is still asleep, his golden blanket pulled over his head. You pass by a small house where an old woman has placed her mirrors outside, trying to catch stray sunlight. Her grandson whispers, "Grandma, there isn't any light." She replies, "Nonsense, child, the gods can be shy." You can't help but smile at that. Mortals have always been masters of denial. The king of Thebes, dramatic as ever, declares a national emergency. He orders men to climb Mount Parnassus to poke the heavens. They bring torches, drums, and an attitude. Halfway up, someone slips, the drums roll downhill, and that's the end of that rescue mission. From afar, the sparks look beautiful though, tiny golden scars flickering against the darkness. By now, you can feel how different the world moves without its clock of light. People walk slower, speak softer. The streets are quieter, but also heavier, as if the air itself has weight. Even the gods watching from Olympus start fidgeting. Poseidon dips his trident into the sea to see if the reflection changes. It doesn't. Hera starts pacing, muttering that this is exactly what happens when you let men handle responsibility. Somewhere near Delphi, a young oracle sits beside her extinguished flame. Her visions flicker like a dying candle. She sees a golden figure lying among clouds and whispers, "He's resting." But she doesn't say it aloud. She knows mortals won't understand. Resting gods sound too much like neglect. Meanwhile, down in the mortal realm, farmers try to continue their day. They harvest by lamplight, the wheat fields glowing orange under thousands of torches. You can hear the rhythmic swing of sickles, the murmur of tired voices. Someone jokes that maybe Apollo's pulling an extended lunch break. No one laughs loudly, but a few chuckle nervously. It's better than silence. Hours pass. The stars refuse to fade. And humanity, ever resourceful, begins to adapt again. Lovers carve hearts on the walls of houses, calling it the eternal dusk. A painter in Corinth mixes soot and oil to capture the hue of this false night. His masterpiece, ironically titled Sunrise Missing. Yet even in this strange calm, unease coils beneath the surface. Crops need sunlight. Animals grow restless. And somewhere in the forests, strange plants begin to bloom, species that only open under moonlight. The boundary between day and night blurs, and so does your sense of time. You pause on a hill overlooking the valley. The wind feels cooler now, but not unkind. You realize you can hear everything. The distant bleat of sheep, the crackle of torches, the heartbeat of a world waiting for its god. Maybe Apollo doesn't realize how loud his absence is. In Olympus, Hermes is already joking that they should install an alarm clock for deities. Athena rolls her eyes, but secretly agrees. Even Zeus seems unsure whether to thunder or nap. The council debates sending a delegation to wake Apollo up, but, naturally, no one volunteers. Waking a cranky god is not a task you survive with your eyebrows intact. Down below, children start singing lullabies to the sleeping sun, their voices high and fragile, weaving through the cool air. For the first time, you sense that maybe humanity isn't afraid anymore. They're simply learning to live without certainty. But as night stretches endlessly, one question hums quietly through every heart, mortal and divine alike. If Apollo doesn't return, who will carry the light? And somewhere far away, under those same stars, a ripple stirs in the heavens, the faint sigh of a god beginning to dream a little too deeply. You walk further down the hill, your steps slow and echoing against the hollow silence of a day without dawn. The air has taken on that strange blue-gray hue that makes everything look like it's underwater. It's the kind of stillness that makes you whisper, even though there's no one around to disturb. Somewhere above the clouds, Apollo finally stirs. His eyes crack open, golden irises dimmed like coals losing heat. The chariot of the sun waits nearby, reins slack, horses drowsing. For the first time in millennia, the god feels heavy. He stretches, rubs his temples, and mutters something in ancient Greek that roughly translates to 5 more minutes. You can't help but laugh. Apparently, divine procrastination is timeless. The clouds shift as Apollo peers down at the world below. He's expecting to see chaos, fires, earthquakes, the usual mortal overreaction, but instead, he sees people adapting. Torches flickering like stars, farmers still working, lovers holding hands in the dusk. That surprises him. He'd always thought the world couldn't function without him. Turns out, it can, just differently. A soft pang hits him, not quite guilt, not quite curiosity, maybe boredom. He swings his legs off the cloud and drops. There's no thunderous descent, no blazing light. Just a faint shimmer, a ripple of warmth sliding down through the mist. When his feet touch the earth, the ground trembles slightly, as if the soil recognizes him. You watch from the distance, a lone figure, barefoot, golden hair dulled with exhaustion, carrying a lyre slung over one shoulder. He doesn't glow anymore. He looks human, almost painfully so. He takes a deep breath and coughs. The air is dense with dust and barley scent. Mortals, he mutters, always growing things that make me sneeze. You chuckle under your breath, but he hears it. Of course he does. The god turns his head, eyes finding you immediately, and for a moment, you freeze. Being seen by a deity feels like being caught mid-thought. Don't look so startled, he says. You're the first person I've seen since I skipped work. His tone is dry, but there's a hint of shame tucked inside the humor. He walks past you, bare feet leaving faint prints of light that fade as quickly as they form. You follow out of instinct. Maybe it's curiosity, or maybe it's that magnetic pull Apollo carries even when he's pretending not to be divine. Ahead lies a village, smoke curling from chimneys like sleepy fingers. The villagers don't recognize him. To them, he's just another traveler with a nice jawline and bad posture. One old farmer squints at him, grumbling, "You're late for the harvest." Apollo blinks. "I might be." Then grab a sickle, the man snaps. And just like that, the sun god, he who commanded daylight and prophecy, is handed a rusty farming tool and a bundle of wheat. You nearly laugh, but the look on Apollo's face stops you. He isn't offended. He's intrigued. For the first time in eternity, someone has spoken to him without reverence. No hymns, no kneeling, no flattery. Just orders. It's absurdly refreshing. The day, or whatever this eternal half-light counts as, drifts by slowly. Apollo works awkwardly beside the mortals, his hands unaccustomed to blisters. The farmer's wife brings him water. He thanks her, and she waves it off, saying, "It's just water, lad." Lad. No one's called him that since the Bronze Age. As dusk deepens, the villagers gather for a meal. They invite you too. Apollo hesitates, then sits cross-legged on the ground like everyone else. Bowls of barley stew and bread pass around. The warmth of firelight paints everyone in shades of amber. For a moment, you forget the sun is missing. Someone starts humming, a low, wordless tune. Apollo listens, entranced. The melody is simple but pure, the kind of sound that belongs to the earth, not the heavens. Without realizing, he reaches for his lyre and joins in. The music swells, weaving through laughter and crackling wood. It feels like dawn sneaking back in disguise. But beneath it all, there's a flicker of unease. You catch Apollo staring into the flames, his eyes distant. "They're fine without me," he murmurs, half to himself. You answer before thinking. "Maybe they just miss you differently." He smiles at that, a tired, crooked smile. "Mortals," he says softly, "always finding poetry in disaster." Somewhere above, the stars shift uneasily, as if waiting for their old companion to return. But Apollo stays silent, the warmth of the fire reflected in his eyes. For once, the god of light isn't shining. He's just human, sitting beside you, learning how it feels to rest. And maybe, just maybe, he's beginning to like it. The next morning, though morning feels like a generous term when the sky refuses to brighten, the village hums softly to life. Smoke curls from thatched roofs, roosters crow into the grayness, and you can hear the clatter of wooden spoons and sleepy chatter from open doorways. Apollo sits on a low wall outside the barn, barefoot, his lyre resting across his knees. He looks less like a god and more like someone who's just realized he doesn't know what to do with a day off. The old farmer from last night ambles over, his sandals scraping the dirt. "You still here, traveler?" he asks, squinting. "Thought you'd gone back to wherever handsome strangers come from." Apollo grins faintly. "Didn't finish my shift." "Huh. Good man. Come on, breakfast." You follow them into the modest stone house. The air smells like barley porridge, smoke, and a faint sweetness, honey, maybe, or dates. Apollo sits at the rough wooden table, tracing the grain with his fingertip. The farmer's wife ladles porridge into clay bowls, muttering that her husband collects strays faster than goats collect burrs. You take a seat beside Apollo, and for a moment, it's absurdly normal. Two mortals and a god sharing breakfast, steam rising between them. The woman slides Apollo a bowl. "You're too thin," she says. "Eat." He nods, a bit startled. Gods don't usually get told what to do, especially not by mortals wielding spoons. But he eats, and you can see the way the warmth hits him. The flavor plain but real. "It's good," he admits. "Of course it's good," the woman says. "It's barley. Keeps us alive." Apollo looks at her like she's revealed some deep cosmic truth. "Barley keeps you alive?" She shrugs. "That, and stubbornness." You nearly choke on your porridge, trying not to laugh. The god of light is learning agriculture 101. After breakfast, the farmer takes Apollo to the fields. The soil feels damp beneath your feet. Without sunlight, everything grows slower, more cautious. The wheat bends, unsure if it should reach upward. Apollo kneels, brushing a stalk between his fingers. "It's trying," he murmurs. "Everything tries," the farmer replies. "That's the trick, isn't it? Trying, even when the gods fall asleep." Apollo blinks, and for the first time, looks almost embarrassed. "Right, the gods." He clears his throat. "And how long do you think this darkness will last?" The farmer laughs. "Darkness? Boy, this is just shade. My wife says it's easier on her wrinkles." You bite back a grin. The farmer trudges ahead, pointing out furrows and weeds as if giving a divine entity a crash course in mortal persistence. Apollo listens, asks questions, real questions. He's not pretending to be humble. He's curious. Later, sitting under an olive tree, the god plucks his lyre again. The strings glow faintly in the half-light. "Do you ever wonder," he asks you quietly, "if mortals would sing without someone to inspire them?" You tilt your head. Maybe they always did. Maybe you just gave them better lighting. He chuckles. "Clever. I like that." From the fields, laughter carries, children chasing each other, their silhouettes cutting across the pale sky. Apollo watches them with something between envy and admiration. "They don't even notice I'm gone," he says. "Maybe that's a good thing," you answer. "It means they've learned from you." He hums thoughtfully, fingers idly strumming. The notes flutter like small golden moths in the air. The farmer's dog howls in harmony. You both laugh until the sound blends with the distant bleating of goats. As dusk, again, if that word even means anything now, settles over the land. The villagers gather once more. They light torches, roast bread, and tell stories. Apollo sits quietly among them, the flicker of firelight softening his face. He listens as a child recounts an old myth about how the sun once chased the moon because he loved her too much. Apollo leans toward you and whispers, "I remember that one." "Completely wrong, of course." "What really happened?" you whisper back. He smirks. "We just have different schedules." The villagers laugh at the child's tale, unaware of the god sitting beside them. You notice how comfortable he looks, how easy his smile has become. There's something healing about this place, the simplicity, the rhythm of living without expectation. As night stretches further, the farmer pours out wine made from sour grapes and honey. It tastes like burnt sunlight and rain. He raises a cup and says, "To whoever brings back the day." Apollo hesitates before lifting his own cup. "To those who keep working in the dark," he replies softly. The toast echoes through the quiet fields. Crickets chirp, fires crackle, and for a moment, the whole world feels perfectly balanced between divine neglect and mortal resilience. You glance up at the faint shimmer of stars. Somewhere above, Olympus stirs restlessly. But here, under the olive tree, Apollo's laughter rings out, clear, golden, and tired in the best way. You realize something. This isn't a god abandoning the sky. It's a god remembering what the ground feels like. And as he leans back, gazing at the endless twilight, you can almost hear him think, maybe, just maybe, the world shines fine without perfection. The next day arrives, or at least, something like it. The light doesn't change, but the rhythm of the village carries on anyway, as if everyone has silently agreed to ignore the sun's absence. You find yourself walking alongside Apollo on a narrow dirt path that winds between barley fields and grazing goats. He's still barefoot, still awkwardly mortal-looking, though his skin has regained a faint shimmer that makes the air around him hum softly, like heat you can't see. He stops near a well and peers down into its inky reflection. "You ever think," he says, "how much quieter the world is when it doesn't expect anything from you?" You lean against the stones. "You mean when no one's waiting for dawn?" He laughs under his breath. "Exactly that. Do you know how loud worship is? Thousands of voices calling your name every morning. It's beautiful, but also like an alarm clock that never shuts up." You can't help but smile. "So this is your version of turning off notifications." He points his spoon at you. Yes, he's holding the same wooden spoon from breakfast, apparently unwilling to give it up. "Exactly. Do you mortals have no idea how nice it is not to be adored for 5 minutes? Before you can answer, the farmer calls out from the road. "Traveler, we're having supper by the hearth tonight. Bring your, what's that instrument called?" Apollo pats his lyre proudly. "A lyre." The farmer shrugs. "Sounds like something you catch trout with, but bring it anyway." You both chuckle and follow him home. Inside the cottage, the smell of roasted lentils fills the air. The family sits close to the fire, bowls balanced on their knees. The flickering light makes everything golden and soft, like the world is trying to imitate sunlight from memory. Apollo sits between you and the farmer's wife. She keeps refilling his bowl no matter how many times he insists he's full. "God or not," she says, "you're skin and bones." He doesn't argue. You notice him glance around the room, at the cracks in the wall, the soot-blackened beams, the gentle chaos of mortal life. He seems captivated by it, as if this humble dinner means more than all the feasts of Olympus. Then comes the inevitable question. The farmer sets down his bowl and says, "So, traveler, where are you from?" Apollo pauses. "Somewhere sunny," he answers. "Huh, good joke," the man says, slapping his knee. "Well, if you're staying, you'll earn your keep. We could use help mending the fence tomorrow." "Of course," Apollo says automatically, before realizing what he's agreed to. You stifle a laugh. After dinner, the villagers gather outside around the communal fire. Someone hands Apollo his lyre. "Play us something cheerful," a young boy says. He hesitates. Cheerful, right? He plucks a string, and the note glows faintly in the dim air, hanging like a firefly. Then another, and another. The melody that forms is soft, winding, half lullaby, half lament. It's not triumphant, not divine, just human. The villagers close their eyes, swaying slightly. Even the goats nearby seem calmer, their bells chiming in gentle counterpoint. When the song ends, silence lingers like smoke. Then applause, awkward, genuine, warm. The old farmer claps hardest. "You play like someone who's seen too much sky," he says. Apollo bows his head. "Maybe too much," he admits. Later, when the crowd disperses, you and Apollo sit by the dying fire. The air smells of ash and night flowers. He leans back on his elbows, staring at the unmoving stars. "You know," he says, "up there, we always tell stories about mortals, how fragile they are, how foolish. But down here, it's not fragility. It's persistence." You nod. "That's what keeps the world turning." He smirks. "Technically, I keep the world turning." You raise an eyebrow. "Used to." That makes him laugh, a quiet, genuine sound that vibrates through the stillness. Touché. Somewhere far away, thunder rolls faintly. Maybe Zeus snoring. Maybe a warning. Apollo doesn't look up. He just keeps staring at the sky that no longer answers to him. "They'll notice I'm gone soon," he says. "They'll send someone." "Do you want them to?" you ask. He doesn't reply. The question hangs in the air like a faint note from his lyre. Beautiful, unresolved, and maybe better that way. The fire burns low. You can feel sleep pulling at your thoughts, the world slowing to a lazy heartbeat. Apollo hums softly beside you, a tune that sounds suspiciously like the rhythm of sunrise, even though dawn hasn't returned. For the first time in history, the sun god is among his worshippers, sharing their dark. And somehow that feels right. Somewhere behind you, the farmer's wife calls out, "Don't forget to cover the fire." Apollo grins. Even gods take orders here. And as you drift closer to sleep, you realize something strange. The world doesn't need the sun tonight. It has firelight, laughter, and a weary god learning how to be small. By the time you wake, the air feels softer, carrying that faint metallic chill that comes before rain. The world hasn't brightened. It probably never will until Apollo changes his mind. But the village has learned to glow in its own way. Fire pits smoke lazily. Children chase each other between fences, and the old farmer hums the tune Apollo played last night while sharpening his sickle. You find Apollo outside the barn, squatting beside a goat that clearly doesn't respect divinity. The animal keeps chewing his tunic. He sighs and pushes its head away. "Is this normal?" he asks you. "Completely," you say. "That's how goats show affection." "Charming," he mutters, brushing straw from his hair. "I think I preferred worshippers." The farmer appears, carrying a basket of bread. "Eat before the rain," he says. "You two can fix the fence after." Apollo blinks. "Rain. Yeah. Comes from clouds, remember?" The god tilts his head at the sky, as if trying to recall the mechanism. "Right. I usually skip that part." You can't tell if he's joking. The morning drifts on quietly. The fields ripple in the breeze, dull bronze under the half-light. Apollo works beside you, hammering a wooden stake into the ground, and every few blows he pauses to admire his handiwork like a child building something for the first time. It's oddly endearing. Then, around midday, if that word even means anything now, the first drops fall. Slow, cool, deliberate. They patter against the leaves and earth with a rhythm that feels almost rehearsed. The villagers cheer. It's been days since the last rainfall. But Apollo frowns, eyes scanning the clouds. "That's not mine," he murmurs. "Of course not," you say. "It's rain." He shakes his head. "No, I mean, someone's meddling." And he's right. Somewhere far above, Olympus is stirring. Zeus has noticed the imbalance. Storms without sunlight, prayers without guidance. Lightning flickers faintly in the distance, like a warning flare. Still, Apollo doesn't move. He just sits back on the fence post, letting the rain soak through his hair. "They'll send Hermes soon," he says. You ask, "To drag you home?" He shrugs. "To fix the PR problem." The rain thickens. Villagers rush to cover grain sacks and animals, but Apollo stays put, face turned upward. For the first time since he descended, he looks like himself again, radiant, restless, impossible to ignore. But instead of commanding the sky, he lets it happen. You realize he's enjoying it. The imperfection, the unpredictability. Gods never get to experience weather. They are the weather. When the rain stops, the world smells alive. Muddy, earthy, honest. The farmer hands Apollo a towel. You work slower than a turtle in winter, he says, but you don't complain. That's something. Apollo smiles faintly. You mortals don't realize how hard not complaining is for gods. That night, the villagers insist he play again. The fire burns low, the rain tapping gently on rooftops. Apollo's fingers dance over the strings, slower this time. The music sounds older, something from before temples and hymns, back when gods and mortals shared the same uncertainty. Between songs, he glances at you. You ever wonder why mortals keep telling our stories? You shrug. Maybe because you're beautiful disasters. He laughs, startled. That's fair. A child asks from the circle. Traveler, are the gods angry with us? Apollo looks down at the boy, his expression soft. No, he says. They're just tired. You can feel the silence that follows settle into everyone's bones. Even the flames seem to listen. Later, when the others have gone to sleep, you and Apollo stay by the embers. He plucks a single string and lets it fade into the air. They think we never stop, he says quietly. But we do. We just don't tell anyone. You ask him if he's going back soon. Maybe, he says. But not until I remember what it's like to miss it. You nod, watching the faint steam rise from the wet earth. Somewhere beyond the mountains, the sky flickers again, another warning from Olympus. But here, in this pocket of half-dark peace, it feels like even the heavens can wait their turn. The god of light leans back, closes his eyes, and for a moment, it's easy to believe that the world doesn't need fixing at all, just a little rest. The night lingers, unbroken by dawn. You've stopped expecting light. Even your body has forgotten the rhythm of sunrise. The village has grown quieter, its people moving by instinct now, guided by torchlight and the strange half-glow that seems to hum around Apollo wherever he walks. He hasn't left the earth yet, though you can tell the decision is heavy on him. He sits by the well again, running his fingers through the water. The reflection stares back. A god who doesn't shine, only shimmers faintly like gold dust in deep water. I don't remember, he says suddenly, voice low. You turn to him. Remember what? Why I started. He taps his temple lightly, frustrated. I know I loved it. The heat, the sound of the chariot wheels, the way mortals looked up when I passed. But now, I can't remember why it mattered. The words hang between you, heavier than clouds. For the first time, Apollo looks truly mortal, confused, uncertain, a creature caught between duty and fatigue. He stands and begins to pace. I've driven that chariot since before your kind had language. Day after day, I rose and fell and rose again. But I never asked why. I thought it was love, maybe pride. But now I see, maybe it was just habit. You nod slowly. Even gods can get stuck in routine. He glances at you, faintly amused. Are you implying I've been bored? Your channel's literally called Boring Greek Myths, you tease. He laughs, a short, bright sound that cuts through the still air like the first ray of dawn. For a heartbeat, you almost expect the horizon to glow. It doesn't, but the sound itself feels warm enough. The farmer approaches then, carrying a jug of wine. You two philosophers talking the night away again, he grumbles. Come drink before my wife accuses me of hoarding. He pours 3 clay cups and sits down beside Apollo without ceremony. You look like a man with too many thoughts, he says. Apollo raises a brow. You have no idea. The farmer takes a sip. Here's my advice. Don't think too much about the sky. It'll go on with or without you. Apollo studies him quietly, then smiles. That might be the most profound thing anyone's ever said to me. It's barley wine, the farmer replies. Everything sounds profound after 2 cups. You laugh, but Apollo just stares into his drink. The firelight reflects in his eyes, tiny suns trapped in gold. Do you ever forget what you love, farmer? The man scratches his beard. All the time, but it comes back, usually when I stop chasing it. That lands somewhere deep inside Apollo. You can see the thought forming, the quiet realization that maybe he's been chasing the wrong thing all along. Hours pass. The villagers drift to sleep. The fields sway gently in the wind. Somewhere far above, Olympus stirs again. Thunder grumbles faintly, the gods restless. But Apollo doesn't look up. He reaches for his lyre, fingers brushing the strings. The melody that comes out is slower than before, hesitant, searching. It sounds like memory trying to find its way home. You close your eyes, letting the sound wash over you. It feels like sunlight remembered rather than seen. You can almost picture it, the golden chariot slicing through clouds, the horse's manes like fire, the sky blushing awake. When you open your eyes again, Apollo's watching you. What did you see, he asks. You smile faintly. You, doing what you were born to do. He looks away, uncertain. Maybe I wasn't born for it. Maybe I just ended up there. The wind shifts. The torches flicker. Somewhere in the distance, a rooster crows at the eternal dusk, confused but hopeful. Apollo chuckles softly. Even he hasn't given up, he says. Maybe you shouldn't either, you reply. He doesn't answer, but his fingers keep moving, coaxing one last fragile note from the lyre. It trembles in the air, pure and aching, before fading into silence. And as it dies, you realize what's happening. Apollo's remembering, not the glory, not the worship, but the feeling, the warmth of giving light, not owning it. Above you, a thin band of pale gold flickers on the horizon. It's not sunrise. Not yet. But it's a promise. Apollo looks up and whispers, almost to himself. Maybe that's enough reason to start again. Then he lies back on the grass, eyes closed, a faint smile ghosting his lips. The god of the sun, for the first time, looks at peace in the dark. High above the earth, Olympus is restless. Clouds churn like unwashed laundry. Lightning flickers without purpose. When gods get anxious, the weather reflects it. Hera is pacing again, her sandals clicking against marble. He's been gone too long, she mutters. The mortals will start inventing theories. They already have, Athena replies, adjusting her owl-shaped brooch. Someone in Athens is writing a scroll titled, The Sun's Existential Crisis. Ares snorts. Let him stay gone. Maybe now I can get some decent weather from my wars. Zeus glares. You think you can grow crops in perpetual dusk, boy? Even warriors need breakfast. The council murmurs. The fates, pale and serene, untangle their threads. One of them frowns. If he doesn't return soon, the weave will shift. Time itself might lose count. Hermes leans casually against a column, biting into an apple. Then let me handle it, he says through a mouthful. I'll find the golden diva and convince him to clock in again. Zeus sighs. You? Last time you handled something, Hera's peacock started reciting poetry. Hermes grins. That was enrichment. They were bored. Still, no one else volunteers. You can't exactly send Poseidon. He'd flood the place out of impatience. Dionysus is too occupied. Artemis, too busy rolling her eyes. So Hermes gets the job. He tightens his sandals, adjusts his winged cap, and with a flourish that would make even Apollo cringe, leaps off Olympus in a streak of silver light. Down below, you and Apollo sit by the riverbank, skipping stones that don't quite skip because the water's too calm. The faint golden shimmer on the horizon hasn't grown, but it's there, a subtle glow that feels like memory refusing to fade. Apollo tosses another stone. You know, he says, I think I could get used to this. No temples, no ceremonies. Just quiet. You nod. You make a surprisingly good human. He smirks. Don't insult me. Before you can reply, a streak of light cuts through the clouds and lands nearby with a thunderclap of ego. Hermes dusts himself off, wings fluttering. Found you, he exclaims, as if playing hide and seek. Apollo groans. Of course it's you. Hermes bows dramatically. Your favorite sibling, at your service. The skies are falling apart, crops are failing, Zeus is threatening to start a group chat. So naturally, I volunteered to save civilization again. You glance at Apollo. He's different from you. Oh, completely, Apollo mutters. He's chaos in sandals. Hermes pretends not to hear. So, brother, Any chance you're planning to end your little sabbatical? The mortals are running on candlelight and existential dread. Apollo leans back on his elbows. I'm resting. Resting? Hermes squints. You've been horizontal for a week. The stars are gossiping about you. The god of light sighs. I needed time to remember why I cared. Hermes plops down beside him, grabbing a handful of pebbles. You sound like a philosopher. Please don't start wearing togas ironically. You can't help but snort. Apollo gives you a look that says don't encourage him. Hermes tosses a pebble into the river. Look, brother, I get it. The whole divine burnout thing, been there. But maybe the world needs you to shine, even if you don't feel like it. That's kind of the deal. Apollo doesn't answer right away. He watches the ripples spread, faint circles disappearing into darkness. And what if I shine again, and no one looks up? Hermes tilts his head. Then you'll still light the way for those who do. For once, the trickster god sounds sincere. The air grows still. A breeze curls through the grass, carrying the faint smell of olive and rain. You look at Apollo, his expression unreadable, the faint glow returning to his skin like a hesitant sunrise. Do you know what the farmer said to me? Apollo murmurs. That the sky goes on with or without me. Hermes chuckles. Smart man. But that's not the point. The sky goes on because you move it. You feel the weight of the moment settle. Two immortals, one remembering why he left, the other reminding him why he mattered. Finally, Apollo stands. His reflection flickers in the water, brightening, stretching, as if the light inside him is remembering its purpose. Maybe I'll take the chariot for a short ride tomorrow, he says, just to see how it feels. Hermes grins. That's the spirit. Ease back into godhood. Maybe start with a sunrise and skip the whole blinding mortals part for now. Apollo smirks. We'll see. As Hermes takes off again, leaving a trail of sparks in the sky, Apollo turns to you. You think they'll be angry? You shrug. Probably. But they'll forgive you. They always do when the light comes back. He looks toward the horizon, where faint streaks of gold are gathering again. Then maybe it's time to wake up. And for the first time in days, you see it. The faintest blush of dawn breathing against the clouds, uncertain but real. The villagers will call it a miracle. You'll know it's just a god remembering what it feels like to care. By the time the next not-quite morning arrives, the world has changed again. The faint blush on the horizon has grown into a shy, honey-colored shimmer. It isn't daylight yet, more like the memory of daylight, something fragile that could disappear if you breathe too hard. The villagers sense it first. One woman gasps as she's drawing water from the well, staring eastward. It's brighter, she whispers. Soon everyone's outside, shielding their eyes though there's hardly anything to shield from. Children laugh. The old farmer crosses his arms and mutters. Took him long enough. You glance at Apollo, who's standing a little apart from them, watching the crowd with an unreadable expression. He looks the same as before, barefoot, dust on his tunic, but there's a faint hum in the air around him now, as if the world itself is tuning to his frequency again. Feels strange, he admits quietly, like waking up in someone else's dream. Before you can answer, a burst of wind swirls around the square. Hermes appears again, materializing with a grin that's far too pleased with itself. Well, he says, look who's finally online. Apollo sighs. Do you ever knock? On air. Hermes smirks. Where's the fun in that? He surveys the village, the people staring at him in awe. You've gone native, brother. Look at this, mortals feeding you, housing you, letting you pet their goats. Very wholesome. Apollo folds his arms. You could try it sometime. Oh no, I prefer my chaos at higher altitudes, Hermes replies. Then, lowering his voice, Zeus is still cranky. He's worried Olympus looks bad when one of its top employees ghosts humanity. Ghosts? Apollo frowns. What's that? Never mind, Hermes says. The point is, he wants you back. You know, spinning that flaming ball of optimism across the sky again. The villagers don't understand what's happening, of course. To them, Hermes is just another radiant stranger chatting with their resident mysterious musician. You can see a few of them whispering prayers, hoping this means the sun's return. But Apollo's hesitating. What if I go back, he says, and it feels the same. The noise, the rituals, the expectation. What if I forget all this again? Hermes shrugs. Then come back down. Take more naps. Maybe humanity needs their gods to be a little more human. You smile. You could make it a thing, work from Earth. Hermes grins. See? She gets it. Apollo almost laughs, but his gaze drifts toward the horizon again. The faint light quivers, waiting for him. They've survived without me, he murmurs. They learned to find warmth in other ways. Exactly, Hermes says. So when you shine again, it won't be because they need you. It'll be because you want to. Something shifts in Apollo's expression, an acceptance, maybe even relief. He looks at his hands, flexing them as if testing whether they still belong to a god. I almost forgot, he says softly, what the strings of light feel like. The sky brightens just a shade more, as if responding to his thought. The villagers gasp again. You can see their faces glow with that old, forgotten warmth. But before Apollo can move, a sound breaks the moment, a song. It's faint at first, drifting from one of the cottages. A young girl's voice, trembling but sure, singing the melody Apollo played by the fire 2 nights ago. The lullaby of the half-dark. Others join in, their voices weaving through the mist, building layer upon layer until it fills the air. Apollo's eyes widen. They remembered it. Hermes grins. Careful, brother. Inspiration's contagious. You can see something flicker behind Apollo's eyes then. Pride, yes, but something softer too. Gratitude. The villagers aren't worshipping, they're echoing. They've taken his song and made it their own. He picks up his lyre, plucks a single note, and the light responds. It blooms outward, subtle at first, then bolder, gilding the clouds. The shadows shrink. The air warms. The world exhales. You can almost hear it. The sigh of a planet remembering morning. Hermes shields his eyes and whistles. Well, there it is. Sunrise, version 2.0. Apollo doesn't answer. He's too focused, guiding the glow as if coaxing it back to life. For a moment, he looks like what he truly is, the heartbeat of creation. But now it's different. Less divine command, more gentle collaboration. When the light steadies, the villagers cheer. Some fall to their knees, others laugh through tears. The girl who sang the first note just stares at her hands, as if unsure how she did that. Apollo smiles faintly. She reminded me, he says, what the light is for. Hermes claps him on the shoulder. Told you. Mortals, always stealing your best material. You laugh, watching as the god of the sun tilts his head toward the horizon, where the newborn light spills over the hills. It's not blinding. It's soft, forgiving. Guess you're heading home, you say quietly. Home. He repeats, testing the word like it's new. Maybe, but I think I'll keep visiting. Please do, Hermes says, already stretching his wings. Next time, bring sunscreen. The trickster vanishes in a shimmer, leaving behind the faint scent of lightning and laughter. Apollo turns back to the village, his temporary home, his quiet classroom of humanity. The people wave, squinting against the gentle dawn. He smiles, a little wistful, a little proud. Maybe gods don't fall, he murmurs. They just land softly. And then he looks at you. Walk with me to the hill. You nod. The light follows. The path up the hill winds between olive trees, their leaves trembling in the newborn light. It isn't full daylight yet, more like a shy rehearsal, but after so many days of dusk, even this fragile gold feels extravagant. The air hums softly, like the world remembering its own heartbeat. Apollo walks beside you, his stride unhurried. The lyre swings from his shoulder, catching bits of light like small suns. Every now and then, he glances at the villagers below. They're pointing, laughing, shouting to each other in joy. Smoke curls from chimneys again. Birds begin to test their voices. Even the goats look suspiciously smug. They're resilient, Apollo says quietly. You nod. You sound surprised. I suppose I am, he admits. All these years I thought I kept them alive. Turns out, they've been doing that on their own. I just gave them a backdrop. You smile. The light was never the point. It's what they did under it. He hums at that, a sound halfway between agreement and wonder. Then, With that same half-smirk he always gets before something unpredictable, he adds, "Still, I do make a good backdrop." You laugh. Don't ruin the humility arc just yet. At the top of the hill, you stop. Below stretches the valley, now bathed in a light so gentle it feels liquid. The barley fields shimmer, the river gleams like spilled bronze. The village looks impossibly small from here, like a handful of sparks in the vastness of the world. Apollo stands still for a long while, breathing it in. You can tell he's listening, not to sound, but to feeling. The breeze through grass, the murmur of waking life, the low song of balance returning. And then, from behind you, that same young girl begins to sing again. Her voice carries easily across the valley, sweet and clear. It's the same tune as before, but this time, she's not alone. Dozens join her, then hundreds. The song travels like wildfire, the whole village caught in its melody. You feel the hair rise on your arms. Apollo doesn't move, just closes his eyes. The light around him deepens, spreading outward, until it feels like the air itself is glowing. "This," he whispers, "this is why I love them." You say nothing, afraid that words might break the spell. The song swells. The wind picks up, tossing petals and ash and sunlight together. For a moment, it feels like the entire world is singing, not to him, but with him. Apollo raises his lyre. Just one chord. It's enough. The sound rolls down the valley like a heartbeat, fusing with the mortal voices. Every torch, every window, every blade of grass seems to catch fire in response. Not burning, but awakening. The dawn finally arrives. Not in a burst, not in a blaze, just a slow, luminous unfurling. Shadows shrink back to their proper places. The clouds blush pink, then white. The sea at the horizon flickers with threads of gold. You can feel the warmth touch your skin, tentative, almost shy. The world has missed this. Down in the village, people cheer. Some weep. Some just stare upward, smiling through tears. For them, this will become a legend, a story told by firelight, of the day the sun slept and returned gentler. Apollo lowers his lyre. His hands are trembling, not from exhaustion, but from the enormity of what he feels. "It's not the same," he says softly. "The light, it's quieter now." "Maybe that's good," you answer. "Maybe the world doesn't need shouting suns anymore." He smiles faintly. "You might be right, though I do miss the drama." You sit on the grass, watching the light creep further, filling the horizon like ink in reverse. The world looks younger somehow, reborn. After a while, Apollo sits beside you. Neither of you speak for a long time. The only sound is the rustling of olive leaves, the distant laughter of the newly awake. Finally, he says, "When I leave again, they'll think I never came down here, that it was just a story." "Maybe that's better," you reply. "Stories last longer than gods." He glances at you, eyes glinting gold. "Then I suppose I'll settle for being a good one." Below, the song fades into silence. The first true morning in days spreads across the land, soft and unhurried. The world exhales, and so does the god beside you. For now, the balance holds. And for the first time in a very, very long while, Apollo doesn't feel like the center of it, just part of it. The next hours unfold like a sigh that's been waiting for centuries. The world hums with that peculiar calm that follows catastrophe, the kind of silence that doesn't mean nothing's happening, only that everything is, and the noise hasn't caught up yet. Apollo doesn't climb back to Olympus right away. He lingers. You walk with him through the barley fields, where the gold is too new, too delicate to touch. Every stalk leans toward him as though remembering the warmth that raised it. The villagers bow as he passes, not out of fear this time, but gratitude. A small boy runs up, holding something behind his back. "For you," he says, thrusting it forward. It's a crudely carved wooden sun, uneven rays sticking out like broken teeth. Apollo takes it, smiling. "Did you make this?" The boy nods proudly. "So you don't forget us again." You see Apollo blink, just once, but it's enough. "I'll try not to," he says softly. He watches the child skip away, then turns the carving over in his hands. "You mortals are dangerous," he murmurs. "You make everything mean something." That's why you like us, you reply. Maybe. He slips the little sun into his belt. Maybe that's why I'm tired, too. You pass through the market square where the villagers are rebuilding the rhythm of their lives. Bakers light ovens, the smell of bread rising like incense. Fishermen untangle nets that haven't touched true sunlight in days. A few women hang laundry, squinting up at the brightness as if testing whether it's real. Apollo watches all of it, silent. They're not even looking at me anymore, he says finally. Isn't that what you wanted? He laughs softly. It is. And yet, the sentence trails off, unfinished, like a melody waiting for its final note. Later, you both sit by the riverbank. The surface glitters now, real light, not torchlight. Apollo trails his fingers through the water. You know, when I first looked down and saw them building temples, I thought they did it out of love. But maybe it was just fear. Or habit. Maybe at first, you say, but habits can become care. So can fear. He looks at you sidelong. You sound like Athena when she's in a good mood. That's the nicest thing a god's ever said to me, you tease. He chuckles, but his smile fades quickly. Still, the song this morning, it wasn't a prayer. It was something else. Hope, you say? He nods. Yes, hope doesn't belong to us. We only ever borrowed it. For a moment, neither of you speak. The light glints on the water in rhythmic pulses, like breath. The world feels alive again, but changed, aware of how fragile its brightness is. Then Apollo does something unexpected. He reaches for his lyre, turns it over, and hands it to you. You blink. What, me? He nods. I think you should play. You laugh nervously. I don't know how. Exactly, he says. That's why it'll sound true. You pluck a string, awkwardly. The sound that comes out is uneven, a hesitant hum. But Apollo closes his eyes, listening as though it's the most beautiful thing he's ever heard. See, he says, even imperfection glows in the right light. You shake your head, smiling. You're just being kind. No, he replies. I'm being honest. That's rarer. A breeze ripples through the grass. The reflection of sunlight on the river dances across his face, softening the gold in his eyes. He looks young again, not the eternal deity who dragged daylight across the heavens, but a man who's finally learning how to exist instead of perform. Will you go back soon? You ask quietly. He exhales. Yes. Not because they expect it, because I want to see what the world looks like from up there, after knowing what it feels like from here. You nod. Just don't forget the wooden sun. He smiles. I won't. I think I'll hang it from the chariot. Give Helios something to gossip about. You both laugh, and for a while, the sound is the only thing that moves through the valley. Above, the clouds are thinning, revealing a sky so clean it looks freshly painted. The light has changed, warmer, wiser, as if it now carries a trace of the humility that birthed it. As Apollo stands, brushing dirt from his knees, you realize this is what rebirth looks like. Not thunder or spectacle, just a quiet decision made in sunlight. He looks down at you and says, "Walk with me one more time." Always. You follow him along the river, your shadows stretching long and familiar behind you. The god doesn't shine anymore. He glows, steady and human-sized. And for the first time in history, the light and the world walk side by side. The sky is clearer now, washed and weightless, the kind of blue that makes you forget it was ever missing. The villagers have already named this day. They call it the return, though it feels more like a soft continuation than a triumph. No parades, no hymns, just the smell of warm bread, laughter drifting from windows, and a sun that no longer burns to prove itself. Apollo doesn't leave immediately. You can tell he's savoring the smallness of things, the way shadows move across stone walls, the way dust glitters in air thick with flour, the way mortals argue gently over who makes the best olive oil. You follow him through the square, and he moves like someone trying not to disturb a dream. At the edge of the market, the farmer from before spots him. "So," he says, squinting up at the god, "decided to get back to work, eh?" Apollo smiles. "You could say that." The man crosses his arms. "Well, good. The goats were getting confused." "They weren't the only ones," Apollo replies dryly, and the farmer laughs. clapping him on the shoulder like an old friend. He looks around at the bustling square. Everything looks brighter, the farmer says. That's you, Apollo answers. You kept it alive while I slept. The man waves him off. Nah, just stubbornness and barley. You gods make things complicated. Maybe that's why I needed you, Apollo murmurs. What's that? Nothing, he says quickly, smiling. You move on, passing stalls of figs and clay pots, the sweet hum of normal life threading through everything. For the first time since this began, the world feels balanced. The mortals aren't praying to the light, they're living in it. As evening approaches, Apollo leads you back to the hill where it all started. The sky has begun its gentle shift toward amber and rose, and the first cool breath of night brushes your cheek. You sit together, watching the light soften into gold dust. You know, he says after a while, when I was up there before, I never really saw this part, the in-between, when the day exhales. I was always rushing to the next rise. That's the best part, you say? The quiet before everything resets. He nods slowly. It's fragile. I like that. For a while, neither of you speak. Crickets begin to call, slow and uncertain, like they too forgot the rhythm of night. Down in the valley, the villagers light small fires again, not from fear now, but comfort. A child's laughter drifts upward, caught in the wind like a tiny spark. Apollo leans back on his hands, gaze far away. When I return, he says, I won't blaze so hard. They don't need perfection, they need warmth. You glance at him. That sounds dangerously close to wisdom. He smirks. Don't tell Athena. She'll never let me live it down. You both laugh quietly, the kind of laughter that doesn't disturb the air. Then, as the last rim of light sinks below the hills, the sky catches fire, not violently, but like a memory relit. The colors bleed, saffron, violet, rose. The whole world seems to hold its breath as Apollo stands, stretching, the motion unhurried and inevitable. This is goodbye, then, you say softly. For now, he answers. You'll still see me, just higher up. Slightly more punctual, perhaps. Try not to oversleep again, you tease. He grins. No promises. He raises his hand, and the air shivers. The horizon bends, glowing brighter. You can feel the shift, the distance returning between mortal and divine. The warmth deepens, pressing against your skin, and for a second you see him as he truly is, vast and merciful, brilliant and tired all at once. But then, just as quickly, he dims. The light folds back into him, leaving only a golden trace where he stands. He looks more human than ever, barefoot, hair tousled, the wooden sun still tucked into his belt. Tell them I wasn't angry, he says quietly. Just sleepy. You smile. I think they already figured that out. A breeze stirs, catching his hair. Do you know what I'll miss most? What? The silence. He steps back, and the air brightens around him. The grass bends and waves, light rising from his feet like mist. Thank you, he says, for walking beside me. Anytime, you whisper. And then, without thunder or flare, he's gone, lifted into the sky like a sigh leaving the earth. The light swells, unfurls, and settles into its rightful rhythm again. You watch until the glow steadies, until the sky finds its usual blue, until the first star dares to appear. Down below, the villagers don't kneel. They just continue their dinner, their laughter. Because this time, the miracle isn't the return of light. It's that they kept living when it was gone. The god of the sun has returned to his post, but something tells you he'll never shine quite the same again. By dawn the next day, the world hums with a kind of hungover calm. Everything looks too vivid, colors brighter, shadows sharper, sounds too crisp after so much dimness. The villagers squint up at the sky, half expecting it to fade again, but the light stays steady. It's a little softer than before, less arrogant somehow, like the sun's learned to listen. You're standing at the edge of the fields with the old farmer, who wipes his brow and mutters, "Nice of your friend to remember his job." You grin. He remembered more than that. The man says, eyes on the sky. Well, tell him not to overdo it. Wheat burns fast. And he's right. By noon, The valley blazes with heat. The wheat, still slick with new energy, starts to crisp at the edges. The air ripples, the soil cracks. It's as if Apollo's newfound enthusiasm overshot the balance he'd promised. The villagers scramble to cover the fields, but the heat is relentless. Children cry, animals scatter for shade. You can't help but glance upward, whispering to yourself, he didn't mean it. On Olympus, however, meaning rarely matters. Hera's already fanning herself furiously. He's overcompensating, she snaps. Zeus groans. I told him to warm the earth, not roast it. Hermes, lounging nearby, shrugs. You wanted results. Technically, this counts. Zeus throws him a look that could melt marble. Meanwhile, somewhere above the clouds, Apollo's chariot cuts across the sky, faster, brighter, unstoppable. He can feel it. The joy, the power, the rush of being the world's pulse again. But beneath the thrill is something else, guilt. The mortals below, his mortals, burning under the very light that was meant to bless them. He slows. The horses snort and paw at the clouds, confused. Easy, he murmurs. We've been gone too long. We forgot how to be gentle. You can almost sense him from the ground, the way the brightness falters, softening back into warmth. Shadows return, and the villagers breathe again. The old farmer wipes his forehead and mutters, someone got the memo. That night, the village gathers by the river, the air cool again. No one blames the god. They've learned he's as fallible as they are. Instead, they sing his melody once more, the lullaby of balance. The one the little girl began when the world was dark. You listen, sitting on the same hill where Apollo once watched with you. The stars shimmer above like watchful eyes. For the first time, they look relaxed. The villagers' song drifts upward, carrying bits of earthbound truth, joy, work, forgiveness, fatigue. The kind of things that make life messy and worth living. And somewhere high above, Apollo hears it. He's hovering just beyond the clouds, chariot idling, reins loose in his hands. The world glows beneath him, alive, imperfect, utterly beautiful. He smiles, faint and proud. See, Hermes' voice drifts beside him, sudden as always. The trickster god lounges casually on a cloud, biting into something suspiciously like a golden apple. You didn't break it. Apollo snorts. Not yet. Hermes gestures toward the ground. They're singing again. You're trending. Is that good? Depends. On Olympus, it means Hera's writing a speech. Apollo rolls his eyes, but there's fondness behind it. They're not worshipping, he says, watching the dancing fires below. They're remembering. Hermes grins. You always were their favorite poet. The two brothers sit in companionable silence, the stars wheeling lazily around them. Below, the river glitters like spilled moonlight. The faint sound of laughter drifts upward. After a while, Apollo says, You think they'll be all right? They've always been all right, Hermes replies. They just like you better when you're a mess. Makes them feel closer. That earns a quiet laugh. Apollo looks at the earth one last time before turning the chariot westward. Maybe they're right. As he moves, the light shifts again, spilling gold across the horizon before fading into amber. It's the perfect kind of sunset. Not blinding, not grand, just enough to promise morning again. You watch from below, the final light brushing your face. It feels like an apology and a blessing all at once. The old farmer sighs beside you. There he goes. Same as ever. Not quite, you say? Because you can tell, the sun doesn't shine the same anymore. It carries a heartbeat now, a pulse of humility threaded through its brilliance. And maybe, that's what it was missing all along. As night settles, you lie back on the grass, the sky vast and calm above you. The stars blink awake, and for the first time, they seem content to share their sky again. Somewhere beyond sight, Apollo hums along with the mortal song, a duet of light and earth, finally in tune. The night after the second sunrise feels different from the others. It's quieter, slower, as if the whole world is finally exhaling after holding its breath for too long. The river murmurs softly. Fireflies drift lazily through the air. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hoots, one of Athena's, Probably, keeping watch out of curiosity rather than suspicion. You sit alone on the hill, the same one where Apollo first touched the earth. The grass is still warm from the day's light, carrying the faint smell of sunburnt wheat and smoke. The sky is velvet blue, and for once, the stars don't feel so far away. They pulse gently, steady heartbeats in the quiet dark. Then you hear it, that faint, familiar hum. A shimmer on the air, a flicker of warmth brushing your skin. You smile before you even turn. He's here again. Apollo steps out of the shadows of starlight, not glowing, just present. His tunic is wrinkled, hair windblown from flight. The wooden sun still hangs at his belt, darker now, polished smooth by the heat of his hand. He looks older, but in a good way. More real. I thought you'd gone back for good, you say? I did, he answers. But then I couldn't sleep. You laugh quietly. You're the only god who gets insomnia after bringing back the sun. He chuckles, sitting beside you. Maybe I missed the quiet. The two of you sit together, watching the night breathe. Below, the village glows softly with scattered firelight, tiny mirrors of the stars above. You know, he says after a long pause, I used to think light and dark were enemies, that one existed only to chase the other away. But now I think they're just tired of being misunderstood. You tilt your head. You sound like a philosopher again. He grins. Don't tell Hermes. The silence stretches, gentle and unhurried. Crickets sing. Somewhere, a sheep bleats in its sleep. You look at him and realize how strange it is to see a god who looks completely content. I spoke with Selene, he says suddenly. The moon. Your eyes widen. And she asked why I slept so long. He pauses, smiling faintly. I told her I didn't mean to. I just wanted to see what the world looked like when I wasn't in it. You nod slowly. And what did it look like? He glances at you. Beautiful. Flawed. Alive. There's a softness in his tone now, a gentleness you haven't heard before. She laughed, he adds. Said I was getting sentimental. Then she told me a secret. What secret? He looks up at the moon, silver and watchful above you. That the world shines better when it doesn't try so hard to be bright. You smile. She's not wrong. She rarely is. He leans back, resting on his elbows, eyes half closed. She said the mortals pray to me for light, but they dream under hers. I told her that's fair. Maybe I needed a little darkness too. You watch him in silence, the moonlight tracing soft lines across his face. It's strange to think of the sun god admitting he needs the night, but it makes sense. Everything needs its opposite to stay whole. Will you tell them what happened? You ask quietly. The others, up there? He shakes his head. No, they wouldn't understand. Gods don't like the idea of being tired. Then maybe mortals should tell it. You say? Turn it into a story. He looks at you and smiles, slow and warm. That's why I came back. To make sure someone would. For a long time, you both just sit there, watching the moon climb higher. The air cools, the stars shimmer brighter, and the first hints of dawn are still a lifetime away. Then Apollo stands, brushing the grass from his hands. It's strange, he says softly. I used to think my light was what made the world beautiful. Now I know it's what the world reflects back that makes it worth shining at all. He looks down at the sleeping village, the flicker of torches and laughter echoing faintly from the distance. They'll tell this story someday, he murmurs. Maybe they'll say the sun fell in love with the earth. Maybe they'll say he just overslept. Either way, they'll be right. You smile. What will you do now? He turns toward the east, where the horizon waits in darkness. Tomorrow, he says, I'll rise a little slower. And with that, he starts to fade, not vanishing this time, but blending into the air, into the soft hum of the night. The grass bends, the stars blink, and for a moment you feel both warm and weightless. Before he's gone completely, his voice drifts back, quiet as breath. Keep watching. The world always glows before it wakes. Then he's gone. Only the sound of the river remains, steady and eternal. The moon hangs high, bright but not jealous. It feels like she's keeping the light safe for him until morning. You lie back on the hill, eyes on the stars, feeling smaller but somehow infinite. The air hums faintly, like a lyre string still vibrating after the last note. The god of light has gone home, but his warmth lingers. And the world, at last, feels balanced again. The world turns slowly now. It's the kind of morning that doesn't hurry, where light drifts like dust through a window, and every sound seems wrapped in wool. You wake to the faint rustle of trees, to the cool breath of dawn, to the soft rhythm of a planet remembering its routine. From the hill, the valley below looks familiar again, fields burnished gold, roofs catching the first blush of day, the river slipping past like a slow song. The villagers are stirring. Someone's hammering wood, someone's calling for bread, and somewhere, a child is laughing in that half-dreamy way that belongs only to mornings. You lie still, watching. The light isn't the fierce, boastful flame it used to be. It's gentler, quieter, touching everything equally: stone, leaf, skin, shadow. It feels wiser somehow. You know he's up there now, in his chariot, driving not with pride but with patience. And you imagine him, Apollo, barefoot no longer, his hands steady on the reins, the wooden sun dangling from his belt as a secret reminder of everything he learned down here. You can almost hear his voice in the wind, half amused, half tender. Try to get some sleep, will you? I've got this part covered. The sky opens wider. The light thickens like honey, spreading across the mountains until the world glows from within. You watch the shadows shrink, but instead of disappearing, they rest softly beneath things, as if the darkness has finally found where it belongs. You walk down toward the river. The water sparkles like the sky has melted into it. The air smells of time and earth and yesterday's rain. A fisherman waves from his boat. He's humming the same song the villagers sang when the sun was gone. The tune has changed, brighter now, but still carrying a trace of that quiet twilight sorrow. It fits the morning perfectly. Joy, softened by memory. You pause beside the olive grove, where the old farmer is already at work. He looks up, squinting against the light. There you are, he says. Your friend finally figured out his brightness settings. You grin. Took him long enough. The man chuckles, pushing his hat back. Tell him thanks, though. Crops are waking up nicely. I think he can hear you, you say. The farmer nods, serious for a moment. Good. Tell him not to stay gone so long next time. You don't need to answer. The sunlight shifts just then, one quick flicker, like a wink. Both of you see it. The farmer laughs and goes back to his work, humming under his breath. You keep walking until you reach the riverbank. The same place where it all began. The air moves slow and warm against your skin. You kneel and touch the water. It's cool, alive. For a second, you think you see a reflection that isn't yours, a face framed by light, smiling, fading before you can be sure. The day settles fully now. The horizon hums with steady gold, and every living thing seems to exhale in time. You close your eyes, letting the sound of the world fill you. The rustle of leaves, the laughter of distant voices, the low song of light on water. It's all one rhythm now, one breath. And in that quiet, you realize something. The story never really ended. It just learned how to rest between chapters. You lie back on the grass, the sunlight warm on your face, and you think about him. The God who forgot how to shine, and the world that taught him how to begin again. You think about the way he laughed, the way he said mortals made everything mean something, and the way even gods need to feel small sometimes. The wind moves through the trees like fingers over harp strings. A cloud drifts past the sun, and the light softens again, just enough to remind you of that eternal balance. Warmth and shadow, rest and return, endings and beginnings. Somewhere far above, Apollo hums, and the sky hums with him. The chariot wheels roll steady. The world, for now, is at peace. Your breathing slows. The sound of the river fades into heartbeat rhythm. The light dims, not because the sun is gone, but because your eyes are heavy now, drifting between wakefulness and dream. The warmth stays, wrapping around you like an old blanket. The story folds itself neatly, like sunlight tucking into dusk. Everything slows, softens, hushes. You hear the faintest whisper, gentle, amused, familiar. Rest easy. I'll keep the world turning a while. And then the last image dissolves. gold against blue, water against sky, the faint hum of strings fading into sleep. End of script. Sweet dreams.